figure out what's on this thing.
Hello, I'm Draven, and this is Inscryption. Inscryption is a puzzle horror card game released in 2021 and developed by Daniel Mullins Games, and today I'm going to discuss some of the core elements of the first act of the game and why I believe it's worth playing because of that. On the surface, this game is a card game and takes many standard elements of other card games, such as Magic the Gathering, which Daniel Mullins himself said was an inspiration. However, it often adds a dark twist and links back to why this game is considered a horror game. One of the biggest examples would be in one of the core mechanics of many such games, a system of sacrificing one thing for another. But in this game, it takes it a more literal sense, as your creatures will be killed for others, and the creatures being summoned take blood and bones to summon onto the field. Another element like this in the game is the use of items. Many items in the game aren't too unusual, with some being able to add new creatures or skip your opponent's turn. However, some items are much more unique as they follow a system of sacrifice for the character similar to those creatures. These items being the knife and the pliers. The health in this game is decided through scales that link to you and your opponent's health and are tipped based on damage through teeth added to either side of the scale. A scale which these items allow you to tip in your favour in a rather unique and twisted way. The pliers allow the player to pull out a tooth to place on the scale, to add a point to their favour. And the knife links further to sacrifice, as it allows the player to remove their eye to place on the scale to tip significantly in their favour, while also losing a sight of half the field. But as I said earlier, it is only a card game on the surface, as it has a much deeper story, which can only be seen through completing the many puzzles and discovering the secrets of the game. One of the first is why some of the cards can talk, specifically one that you meet first, but later increasing to 3, that help guide the player and show them how to progress forward and defeat the man keeping you in the cabin. This is another interesting element of the puzzles. You are not limited to the board like a standard card game, and are able to explore a more three-dimensional surrounding, which has multiple puzzles and secrets. Some of these puzzles are easily discovered. For example, one of the cards tells you about the combination to a safe being in the book. However, other elements take a lot more thought and can be hard to discover. For example, you need to use the knife to remove one of your eyes, and then choose the correct replacement from a box to complete a puzzle which is needed to progress the story to the next act. Speaking of progressing the story, that links to another unique element which I briefly touched on earlier, in that winning and losing in this game doesn't stop the continuation, which can only be stopped through completing the puzzles. What I mean by this is, whether you beat the last boss of the act or lose halfway through, both will lead you back to where you started if you don't finish the right puzzles. If you die, you are turned into a card and replaced by a new character who can use the previous character as a card in their deck. And if you win, you still become a card. You just get added to the door of the cabin, rather than a deck. This is a game that expects the player to lose, and early on almost forces them to do so, as if they are getting too far, the boss will play an almost unbeatable field so that the player has to die, as this is a core mechanic for progression of the game. Now with the discussion of bosses, it implies the presence of other characters. However, this isn't quite the case, as the only person you meet is the shadowy figure seated across from you. Instead of new people, this character simply puts on a mask and takes on a new persona as he leads you through a twisted game. This is shown especially through the brilliant soundtrack, which makes use of the core elements of the character, e.g. the prospector boss has the sound of mining as part of the music, to set the mood and increase the tension. I feel that through this act, the music wonderfully sets the menacing tone, or mysterious tone, very well, and is another great reason to play. If the elements of the first act did interest you, I would absolutely recommend you play it for yourself, as there are many elements I left out, due to spoilers or due to the fact that I just didn't have time to cover them. Plus, many of the secrets and plot points link to the second and third act in interesting ways that you might not expect. Overall, I feel that Inscryption is an extremely interesting and fun game that has a very unique style and that can be enjoyed for the puzzles and deep secrets, or can be just as fun as a simple card game.